I think I have to do more than just bluff. Very nice.
Why do I have to dress this way?
2 reasons. 1, because I like women in bikinis. And 2, I feel safer when I know there's no place for them to hide any weapons.
See? Even gay guys love to see women in bikinis. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Saladino. You know, for all feminists, SJWs, activists, for all their talk of like gender roles and forced gender roles and toxic masculinity and all this stuff, George Lucas never actually said the Force had a gender. But one of the first things Kathleen Kennedy did when Disney inexplicably put her in charge of the Star Wars franchise, the first thing she did, or one of the first things she did, was announce that the Force is female. Part of me is starting to wonder if the sudden influx of trans women in women's sports isn't just this reaction to feminists taking over geek hobbies. Are these just men who got so triggered and traumatized over how insane it is to put women who couldn't care less about male hobbies or what men like about them in charge of male entertainment? Suddenly, these men decided, okay, if that's how things are going to be, I'm just going to become a woman, right? It's no accident to me that Spider-Man 2 is as bad as it is once you learn that it's mainly written by women and that their decisions were propped up by men, so-called men, who were more interested in the heroes' girlfriends than the heroes themselves.
Who doesn't want to see themselves in their favorite games? I mean, if you ask me, probably people who are more interested in seeing Spider-Man in their favorite games than themselves, but go on. She also writes that I believe games are for everyone. They should be accessible and supportive of all players. Inclusivity, she writes, is incredibly important to me if you haven't noticed. Okay, like I said, there is nothing inherently wrong with wanting the media you consume to be relatable. But, and I think here's the catch, not all forms of media can or should be relatable. You want your romance novel to be relatable? Well, that just makes a lot of sense. Probably most of the women who do read romance novels are, when they're reading them, imagining themselves as the main character being swept off her feet. But relatability can only go so far, especially depending on the genre you're working on. For some genres, the point of it all is to not be relatable, or at least not relatable in superficial aspects. I think even a really good sci-fi or fantasy series should be relatable in terms of like human emotions and experiences. I mean, if I'm watching a sci-fi series like Star Wars, no, I don't need the character to look or act like me, and in fact, it will probably take me out of the series if they do.
Hey, she cooking, y'all.
One of the main reasons why the mainstream media loves Spider-Man 2 so much is because they don't actually like superheroes. Despite how popular superheroes became in the media, I don't think they're as popular as they used to be, but despite how popular superheroes have become, they don't actually take superhero themes, superhero tropes seriously. So a game that spends a large chunk of its time constantly sort of digressing and diverting from actual swinging around the city, beating up bad guys is something that they love. To them, it means more to gaming to have a superhero game feature, MJ stealth missions where the female character who doesn't actually have superpowers is actually the most powerful person in the game. It's like the creative director was saying. He didn't want to make a superhero game. He didn't want to make the Spider-Man game if he couldn't have long, boring sequences of Peter and Harry riding around on bicycles. The mission he loves the most is the Haley mission where she's going around town spray painting cringe on walls, the deaf girl, and they have her thinking in emojis instead of having actual thoughts. This is the stuff that they care about. They only use superhero entertainment as a vehicle to push their agenda. He even said it. Kyle did a whole compilation of his stream where he watched a bunch of interviews with this creative director. And the guy was constantly talking about how important the MJ missions were, how important the Haley missions were, how important the gay guy missions were, all this stuff. You look at his body language, it reminded me of it kind of reminds me of like the Bud Light VP. Watching that dude's like body language when he was talking about different things. Like he would hand wave the superhero stuff. Oh, of course, yeah, the superhero stuff, that's important. But what I really wanted to, that was like that Bud Light VP. I don't forget her name. Alyssa Henshire. I don't know that mouth do girl. Her.
Think some of your values, and what were some of those aha moments that made you think like, okay, I think I can change the narrative a little bit?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I've only started doing it in my 30s, to be totally honest. I'm 39. It's probably taken me a decade to figure this out. I'm still unraveling it, like the who and the why.
Yeah.
But I have this amazing professional coach, and she said this thing to me, and she said, the number one indicator of your professional choices is your parents. And the number one indicator of your success in those choices is your choice of partner. And she said, for instance, and this is just a slight anecdote, but I think it's fascinating.
So as she's talking about her professional coach. It's someone she pays to tell her what to think, what beliefs to have, what is right, what is wrong. She's looking off camera to remember exactly what her professional coach, technically we should all call her handler, has told her.
My professional coach, her mother was a woman who always struggled with mental illness, grew up kind of in the 80s in the UK. Her dad was an African immigrant, both incredibly smart, but both had a ton of trouble ever realizing their potential because of mental illness and inveterate racism. And she was like, my whole life is devoted.
But you see how animated she is talking about her handler as if her handler is her. She has adopted her handler's persona as her own. So the beliefs of the handler, the wants of the handler, the history of the handler have now become hers. Her Southern upbringing, God-fearing Bible Belt of America has been washed out by her handler. Her body says, this is my new narrative, my new personality.
She made selling beer about changing people as opposed to just, hey, enjoy this swill and drink responsibly. So when I say women shouldn't be writing entertainment for men, this is what I mean. It's really not about them being women. It's just about hiring women who lead with their gender. They claim to be, they don't want to be seen as just women. They want to be like non-binary, allegedly, right? Even if they're not saying they're non-binary, they want you to just ignore gender when you're talking and looking at them, right? But everything that they do is through the lens of gender. How they see men and how they see men relating to their hobbies and interests, all of that is inherently toxic simply because men are inherently toxic to them. They want to change behaviors and essentially rub men's noses in their agenda. Because, there's something very resentful about feminists and how they go about things. It's not enough to just say, we're going to make a cool black character or we're going to insist that Miles be a part of our Spider-Man game. We're going to call him Miles. We're going to make him better than Peter. That's where they always push it further than they need to. You don't have to dump on the original character to get Miles over or to get MJ some shine. But they do that because they really want to show you that they're tearing down your heroes. They're trying to take something from you. They do it with uglifying women. They know men like sexy women in the media. They know that men like strong, cool action heroes. They know that men can relate to rescuing the damsel in distress. And none of these things are a problem for average people playing video games, watching TV, reading comic books. But all of these things have become demonized over the years because feminists want to tear all of that down from men. They want to take things from men and they don't want to do their own thing. Partly because they know it's not going to be successful, but also because they are trying to infect what men like. They love invading men's spaces. Women writers working with superheroes are constantly doing things where they compare real life issues for women to chastising superheroes in fiction for what they're doing. They equate like Spider-Man flying and swinging through the city as just this fun joyride. They don't look at him as actually risking his life, putting his life on the line. They see Spider-Man as simply an extension of what fans love about Spider-Man, that he looks cool, he's funny, he's relatable, he can beat up the bad guys, he's got these cool powers, he's got this cool look, whatever. And they have their character, they have like MJ, treat Spider-Man like he's ignoring things that MJ in the comic books would never attack Peter for. It doesn't make sense for her, knowing that he's Spider-Man and everything he goes through as Spider-Man, to be screaming about paying his mortgage. Aunt May's house should already be paid off. I don't know what that's all about, but it's just stupid. Like this stuff about, I work at a job I hate just to keep you happy. If Spider-Man needs to make money, he can go make money. They just did that to tear him down. And it's this thing where, again, they did it with Jen yelling at Bruce, where she's talking about being catcalled and stuff. In the Marvel Universe, that doesn't mean anything. You can't tell Hulk, I know more about controlling my anger than you do, when you know that Hulk lives in a world where people have tried to kill him, where he watched his mom get killed, where they shuttled him off to a different planet, where he's dealing with a monster that eats people, is breaker of worlds. And she's talking about being catcalled and being disrespected by her colleagues. It doesn't make sense. Bruce's colleagues sent him to another goddamn planet. In the MCU, he just finished helping save the multiverse. And she's whining about being catcalled. They don't care about the lore. They don't care about the difference between real life and, imaginative fiction and adventure stories. And it's stupid to keep hiring these women to treat everything like it's some kind of lesson in respecting women, in believing all women, and these really petty concerns. Because if you want to be taken seriously, write good material in the context that you can accept. Oh, I get what you mean about harassment or catcalling or being disrespected by your colleagues. Why are you having the heroes being yelled at by these goofballs where you just can't take it seriously? They can't get out of their own heads, and they don't want to. And like I've said in previous videos, the issue really isn't women. It's feminists. There are plenty of women out there who can write, especially novels. There are so many great novels written by women. Great horror novels, sci-fi. One of my all-time favorite novels is by a woman. It's called As Meat Loves Salt. And the main character is a horrible person. He's male. It's a dude. And he's going around doing horrible stuff. But I love the guy. It's great stuff. And it's just this thing where the people who are being hired to do this stuff, to entertain men, to work on AAA games, these are not intelligent people. These are not talented people. These are people who tick a box. And since they don't respect superheroes, it's fine for them, these different companies to hire these people and say, okay, you've got blue hair, you're non-binary, you're deaf, you want to see yourself in a video game. Sure, we'll give you the job. Who cares? There would have been a time not that long ago where you could never hire a woman to write a superhero story because a superhero game, a Spider-Man game like this, because you'd be like, wait, we want boys to enjoy this, right? We want boys to like this game. Women are going to put lame stuff in it. If she's a feminist, MJ is going to be ugly. That's what we got. You're going to have to be forced to play the game as other characters besides the superhero you're paying money to play as. But this is the thing. This is why I made that video about what to tell woke women writers trying to ruin your franchises. Like I said, if you have to hire women to work on games for men, it's okay to tell these women you're writing a story for a largely male audience. You have to write things that appeal to them, not what craps on everything they like about the hero. We're not going to go off on side quests with characters they don't care about. Stop trying to teach them a lesson. Stop trying to rub their nose in, you're going to accept the truth of this deaf black girl and the BIPAC magic that we need you to see. And if these women that they're hiring, these feminists, are offended by men and their interests, then they don't need to be working on these projects. Why are they being paid and being lavished with praise by the press and the media? Because they're doing things that they know the fans don't want. You get a bunch of normies buying these games because they recognize the Spider-Man name, but it's going to be diminishing returns. There are plenty of women out there who can do this and will respect the characters and respect the audience. If no woman wants to do it, and you can't find a woman who really wants to do it, then just hire men. This is a business after all. Women don't need to break the glass ceiling in a house that they haven't even been invited to. These are male entertainments. I keep saying this. Gaming, AAA gaming, superheroes are male hobbies. When women come to it, they don't come to it demanding that things be changed for them.
And so, okay, you might be asking yourselves, we see the problem, but what exactly is the solution? And well, I don't mean to sound like a South Park ripoff here, but I think the solution is to stop trying to pander to these people. Not every genre, not every franchise is going to appeal to everybody, and that's okay. If you're someone, for example, a woman who wants relatability in your content, that's perfectly fine. It's all right if you have that preference, but when it becomes a problem is if you have the expectation that everything should cater to that preference. And to be clear, I don't think that most women do even expect every genre or franchise to cater to them. I mean, before all these different activists like Kathleen Kennedy started trying to insert themselves into media, it's not like there were tons and tons of women out there lamenting that Star Wars wasn't for them. Star Wars already had tons of female fans who liked the franchise for what it was. And the women who didn't like Star Wars for whatever reason, it's not like they were en masse demanding that Star Wars change to suit their preferences. Again, if you ask me, the problem that we're seeing now, it's not so much women at the core, it's these self-entitled narcissists. Again, the problem, if you ask me, isn't so much women, but rather these immature narcissists who not only demand this representation and relatability, but also do it in such a narrow and lazy way that it also hurts the overall story.
This is the thing that feminists push when they get in charge of these properties, because they're trying to take things from men. It's ridiculous, and it's not bigotry to say, you actively don't want to entertain men. You don't need to be here. And the thing is, I would say the same if it was about like writing a romance novel for a largely female audience. If I was a man and I wanted to, make it about action and horror and all these things that women typically wouldn't be interested in, especially in the genre that I'm supposed to be working in, I wouldn't want men invading those spaces. I would not want men invading women's spaces. Even though feminists seem to be okay with that these days. Yeah, I don't know.